Good evening. How's everyone doing? Big wave, thumbs up. Small crowd tonight, so lots of applause, cheering, encouragement for the panel. Thanks for joining. My name's Matt Carlson. I'm co-chair of the board at VEF. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Vancouver's premier networking forum for technology entrepreneurs. Want to just take a moment to welcome and thank everyone who's new tonight. We appreciate you joining us, and we have a pretty exciting agenda for next year. So as the second to last event for the year, Kelly? Second to last? We'll be announcing our next year's season soon. Just so you know, our events are put on by our not-for-profit and volunteer committees. So I'd just like to thank Tim Swanson from Corporate Recruiters and Tyler Sigmund from Red Hook Studios for organizing the panel tonight. Thanks, guys. There we go. And Steve Lowry. Thanks, Tim. Destiny Media. Discovery Media. See, it's an interactive session tonight. You can interact. You guys can shout things at me. Perfect. We have a thank you tonight to a new sponsor, a highlighted sponsor, Douglas College. I think we have a perfect. Douglas College, for those of you who haven't or not familiar, Douglas is the largest college in British Columbia. They offer dozens of university transfer diploma, applied degree, and post-degree programs. They actively encourage academic exploration to help students find the right fit for their great careers. And they have a pretty hands-on approach that emphasizes learning by doing. Douglas thinks that this makes them one of the best places in Canada to discover what students love to do and really become good at it. So I'd just like to thank Douglas for their support with a short round of applause. Do we have someone from Douglas College here tonight? No? Okay. One new sponsor tonight, Andrew Diltz from MLT Law Firm, is new sponsor as of this month. I just want to invite Andrew up to make a short announcement. Andrew?
Thank you, Matt. Pleased to be here to say some very brief opening remarks on behalf of McPherson, Leslie, and Tyerman is our full name, affectionately known by our clients as MLT Lawyers. Starting this month, as Matt mentioned, MLT is pleased to come on board as a sponsor of the Vancouver Enterprise Forum. Fantastic institution. I think we're 28 years old now. So we're, as lawyers, we're always looking to add value for our clients, and we're very happy to partner with an organization that provides such great support to the technology community here in Vancouver. A bit about our firm. Let's see if this works. There you go. We are more than 150 lawyers across Western Canada. You might recognize, some people in the room might recognize the name Gal Smoller or Maddie Shams. They couldn't be here tonight. Jonathan O'Connor, one of our partners. Jonathan, are you in? There he is, right in the back. If you ever want to talk to anybody about financing or mergers and acquisitions, Jonathan is one of the best lawyers that you're ever going to get the chance to chat with. We are relatively new to the Vancouver community, but our firm has been around for 96 years, and we have a presence in 5 cities across Western Canada. In Vancouver, prior to last year, we were the Vancouver office of one of the big Bay Street firms, actually one of the places where the television show Suits was filmed was in the same building. We've cut loose from them, and it's actually fantastic to see some of the great things we're doing in Western Canada. We're also a full-service firm, so from the incorporation and the shareholders agreements, the early stage documents that you'll be doing for your clients, right on up to intellectual property matters, some of the more complex employments and contract agreements, maybe some financing, maybe some mergers and acquisitions. We can handle it all. Like many fantastic law firms, we have a startup package where there's documents and certain pieces that you're getting at a really great rate. But one of the things that we're trying to differentiate ourselves with is having a bit more of a startup program. So in addition to very cool events, I was inspired by an event called Death by Board Meetings. That was a great panel discussion down in Silicon Valley. We're looking at some more innovative things that's more like actually coming in to watch a live negotiation on a term sheet between an investor and a serial entrepreneur. We're getting a bunch of would-be companies into the room at the same time. We'll get a dozen people. We as lawyers know you ask a lot of the same questions. We'll get some accounting advice in the room, and we'll incorporate all of you right there. Same, all the 12 companies. So if you ever have any questions about some of the program, that's a bit of a sneak peek. You can't find out about it on the website just yet. Please feel free to talk to myself or Jonathan at any point after the discussion today. One last point, we do, in addition to being lawyers, we love to leverage our network and our resources. So during the recent Canadian Financing Forum, we co-hosted a dinner with Silicon Valley Bank. Back during Vancouver Startup Week, we co-hosted a dinner with a consulate general of Canada down in Seattle that brought a bunch of investors up from Seattle. So we're always looking to add value for the clients that we're working with. So it's not just about us doing your legal documents, but about providing value to your company as well. Just very quickly, here's some of the key people. Jonathan up there at the top, Gal Smoller, another name you might recognize, and Maddie Shams, contact information. So thanks everybody for your 100 seconds, and I'm going to leave it to the fantastic companies and back to Matt. But we'll see you around the Vancouver Enterprise Forum. Very, very happy to be on board as a sponsor for the coming year. Thanks very much.
Well done. Thanks very much, Andrew. So on that note, just wrapping up to thank all of our sponsors. If you would like any more information on any of our sponsors, please do go to our website, and you'll see that we actively profile them throughout the year. Now on to our lightning pitches. Brian Buggy from Vancouver Economic Commission will be introducing some of our lightning pitchers. Brian?
Okay, hi everybody. So everybody probably knows how this goes. Each company or person gets 100 seconds. And am I using this? Or it just goes automatically, right? They get the remote. Perfect.
There you go.
I should know this. Okay. So first up is Yashir from This Open Space. And you can stand if you like, or you can sit, but go ahead.
It's a comfortable chair, so I'll stay sitting.
Okay.
I'm This Open Space. My name is Yash. I'm the founder and CEO. We're an online marketplace. We make it easy for people to discover and book short-term commercial spaces. We're changing how people think about access to commercial space. It's a huge market in North America alone. People spend over $50 billion annually on short-term commercial real estate rent. We're growing fast. Our platform receives over 3 million in booking requests each month. We've grown GMV in the first quarter by 200%, and our annual run rate is $850,000 currently. We're live in Vancouver, Toronto, and New York. There's a massive market waiting to be unlocked. Just as people open up their homes by listing on Airbnb, businesses are opening up their underutilized space to get additional revenue, and they're making easy money on This Open Space. How we make money, we put ourselves in the middle of the transaction. We take a 9 to 15% from the seller side, so the people who list their space, and a 3% booking fee from the buyer side, so people who are renting space online. On average, our take rate is 16% per transaction. We believe that building the product that we sell is just half of it. Building the team and the culture behind that team is the other half of the business, and we've assembled a dream team. My co-founder, Adam, previously left a Techstars-backed venture to join us. Myself, I really understand the problem well. I've met our first 1,000 users by really working on the problem manually over the years. Our technical lead, Tyler, left Spacelist, which some of you may be familiar with, to join us. Everybody has skin in the game, and our superpower is that we're able to do a lot more with a lot less, so therefore we can do more. So we're currently raising our seed round. We're raising $1 million to expand into new markets and establish barriers of entry in the markets that we're already in. That's my time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Yashir. So next up is Mike with Spend.it. Spend It.
Hi. So I'm Mike. I'm a last-minute replacement, so I don't have any slides. I'm the whole show. I got a hat that has my name on it. I'll just repeat again, spendit.com. So essentially what we do is we help small and medium business in doing prepaid and being able to sell outside the box. Big problem for the small business owner is having a mobile responsive e-commerce website that they can constantly, manage and maintain. So what we do is we provide them with the videos, we provide the content marketing that goes along with that in small, low cost, medium quality content packages. So what we do is we work with the retailer, we work with restaurants, we work with entertainment people on the basis that there's 5 seasons. We have the regular 4 seasons, and then we also have Christmas. So this is a very good time for gifting. During our experience of going out and talking to a lot of retailers about this kind of program, one of the things that they really connected with was the fact of how easy it was to use our system. Essentially, same way that you would go to a sporting event or a concert, you basically get a mobile or a paper ticket. We can put a code on anything. So we can put that code on a product. Once that product is on our product promotion page, we give what we call an A code. So that's an acquisition code. That can be placed in any media, whether it be electronic or print, and that takes you directly to the point of sale where the product is. That's how we make our money, 20% on everything we sell. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for filling that empty seat in at the last minute. Okay, next up is Nick from Hutsa.
Yep. I'm Justin, this is Nick. We have founded and exited a startup before that grew to 100 employees, and we've just arrived in Canada on the startup visa. We're here to tell you about Huzza, which is exclusive monetized live streaming. So that's Amanda on the screen there. She's an artist with millions of fans. And, live streaming is a great way to engage with people. And she could use Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, but they all have the same problem. They're all public, they're all free, they're all full of trolls, and it's hard to monetize and hard to control her brand.
So over the last few months, Amanda's been using Huzza. She can limit her live stream, so she creates exclusive experiences for her paying fans. And Huzza is a lot more interactive than other platforms. We've got selfies, Q&A, and multiple broadcasters. You can also monetize on Huzza. So not only do fans pay to watch, but you can also sell merchandise and take donations. And Huzza is not just for musicians. In fact, we've had YouTube stars, historians, VCs, CEOs, and even Mythbusters use Huzza. So anyone who has a fan base needs a way to engage and connect with those core fans. And they need to do that in a way that's meaningful for them. Behind all of this is custom-built technology that delivers low latency video, lots of interaction, and multiple broadcasters.
So in the last month, we've had 40 streamers and over 11,000 people use Huzza. We're starting to monetize, and we've had some high-profile companies interested in integrating our product. So we're raising a small angel round now to build out our native mobile apps. This will help us grow our viewership, get streaming more frequently, and get us ready for our seed round in Q4. So we're looking for investors to join us early, and we'd love to chat to you afterwards. Thank you very much.
That's great. Do economic developers, do they have fan bases? Just kidding. Okay.
Now I feel like I have to stand up.
Yeah. So this is Billy Joe from Billy's List.
My name is Billy Joe Asen. I am a talent buyer and festival producer with 542 Entertainment, one of the largest talent buying companies in Canada. Today I'm introducing Billy's List, the hottest booking platform to book musical talent. Booking any type of band can be very, very time consuming, whether you do it full time for a living or whether you do it once a year for your holiday party. Moreover, there's no data whatsoever on the artists that you're booking. The solution is Billy's List, a transparent rating, booking, and search engine so that you're able to book artists like a pro. We have real-time stats, schedules, transparent ratings, and a step-by-step booking process. Basically, you enter in your genre, your dates, and your location, and our system will cipher all the artists that are available by rating. Click on the rating, click on the artist, and you can see all of their quick stats, including all of their ticket sales that they've done in the marketplace before. Click Book This Artist, and our system will take you through a step-by-step booking process to be able to do so. Once the artist confirms the gig, then a contract will be sent to both of you with all of the marketing materials, and after the gig is done, you each get to rate each other. Although Billy's List is a 100% free model for artists and venues to be on, we make our revenue off of 5 different streams: artist upgrade, venue upgrade, artist course registration, agent and manager stats, and one-time users. Touring revenues have never been higher in history, yet the booking platform is archaic. I know this. I've been in it for years. We are the place where artists, buyers, promoters can all come together to learn, think, and be discovered. Today, our ask is our first fine for financial funding. We are just at our MVP stage. We're launching to market in the spring. I'm Billy Jo Asen with Billy's List, and I look forward to talking to you after.
Fantastic. And that is it. We're done. Okay.
Thanks, guys. Those were awesome. Really great presentations. Oh, thank you. I'm gonna have to write some checks after this. So finally, just want to thank Brian and introduce our moderator for the evening, and mention our event hashtag, which is hashtag VEF Digital Media. If you want to tweet, Instagram, what have you. So tonight, the individual who's hosting is Mo Dollywall. Mo is Director of Strategy at Skyrocket Digital, and he will be introducing and leading the discussion with our panelists. So Mo, welcome, and please come on up.
Is this on? We're good? All right. Thank you all for joining us tonight. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. And I'm going to introduce everybody one by one so we can see who they are. And we have some regrets tonight. Darcy Hughes is not going to be able to join us. We were hoping he'd be able to make it back for stage time. But he assured us he's talking to somebody from one of the top 3 publishers, and it sounded like a very important call. So we let him take that. So first up, we have Jamie Chang, the founder of Clay Entertainment. Can you join us? And Stephen Reckschaffner, the advisor to MEO Global, amongst many other things. Kenshin Arasaki, the co-founder and CEO at Thinking Ape. And Adam Coble, a real live streamer on Twitch. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for joining us, and I guess I should pass one of these down as well.
I get to you.
Well, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
So it's really poignant that we're having this conversation today because this morning I received my first ever copyright violation notice.
Oh, those are fun. I love those.
Yeah, from HBO to my ISP because Game of Thrones came out like Sunday night and I had to watch it right away.
Just use a VPN.
Well, now I'm going to. It was never a problem before, but I think HBO properties are one of the last ones that are high enough friction that it turns fine, upstanding people like me into a thief. Anyways, there we are. So I guess to start off, we're really here to talk about obviously business models, monetization, everything to do with content, streaming, platforms. How to make money with all the change that's happening in content and media. And we're starting off with a very dated reference to Cuba Gooding Jr. But
yeah, who's responsible for the title of this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. But if change is a constant, then what's changed in what's changed in the business models for content delivery? I mean, what sort of changes are you guys seeing in your business, and what are you taking advantage of today? Who wants to start?
I suppose. Is this on? Hello. I suppose we're not actually farting all over the place. It sounds like it. We are. It's kind of. For us, we've been doing. I started a studio to make video games and to sell them digitally. That's what we did to start with, and we've been doing that for 10 years. And from that perspective, I feel like there's a lot of things underneath us that change. For example, Adam here has been streaming our games, and that's been fantastic. We work with them very closely. We work with different streamers very closely, and there's different ways to see our content and all that. But ultimately, it still ends up being the same, which is that if you create great content, if you can solve the job that people want to solve, which is that they want the great entertainment, they're going to pay me a premium price for it, right? Or steal it off the internet, whichever is the matter. So, for us, that's what we focus on. We focus on creating remarkable experiences that you just can't get anywhere else, and that's why you want to go to HBO, because it has an experience that you can't get anywhere else, and you will pay a premium price for it because it's going to satisfy your need. right? So for us, we create this content that's remarkable, and you can't get anywhere else. So people will talk about it, people will share it, and say, "Oh, you know what? You got to play a Clay game because it's an experience you've never had before." So for us, while the underlying systems have changed, the approach has stayed the same.
I think what's been really fascinating is this sort of return to the idea of the live event in terms of content. Like, at least for me, we have our Netflixes where it's an immediate access for a cost to an infinite amount of content, and it's driven people to the kind of what had been considered predominantly an old time approach to the idea of, like, if you don't tune in, you're gonna miss it. You will not get access to that content. And in streaming, being able to access that kind of immediacy has been really crucial.
I think an interesting change, which started almost a decade ago, is also, at least in games, the rise of different monetization models. And so our company does free-to-play games on mobile. I think we were one of the first ever companies to have in-app purchases. And I think in 2016, mobile gaming with free-to-play at its head actually now eclipses console and PC gaming revenues. And so we're seeing a lot of maybe like the maturation of a lot of these disruptive changes that happened almost a decade ago.
Right, and in the gaming space, that's starting to be seen as less of an implication of poor content. There was definitely a time where the idea of if a game was free or free to play, that it wasn't the full experience, that there was this sort of model of, well, you don't have to pay for it, but it's garbage, so pay or don't play it. But I think, like you said, that model is really maturing to the point now where people who would consider themselves fairly serious gamers can engage with that free-to-play model in a way that feels like they have some respect for it, where that was not necessarily always the case.
I can say from personal experience, big companies hate change. Consumers love change. A few years back, when we were trying to bring content and entertainment services to Xbox Live, people like Netflix, HBO, the NFL, all these people that own this massively popular content, they hate change. They're scared of it. They're scared of new business models. They're terrified they're going to piss off the people they're already doing business with. And so what we heard often was, yeah, that's really great. That feels like the future, but we just can't go there yet. And what I would say as an observation is it's the disruptive new experiences and services that nobody sees coming that cause people to change. And we're going to see it over the next 3 to 5 years in ways I think we've never seen it before, when sports rights holders start taking back their properties and no longer offer them for sale to networks. That's going to start to look different. When all of a sudden the consumer can't tell the difference. And remember, was the show on Netflix? Was it on HBO? Was it on SHOMI? Was it on Amazon? I can't remember where I got it. And they're going to grow so frustrated, it's going to cause some companies to escalate and some to disappear, because the cost of producing content the way they currently are is so far from being sustainable. Either they have to have a loss leader like Amazon does, or they've got to be such an 800-pound gorilla, currently like Netflix does, that they can justify doing it. So I think these next 3 to 5 years are going to be incredibly interesting.
And I mean, until that point comes along, I mean, there's obviously content that still is introducing enough friction for people like me. I'm fairly tech savvy and, signed up to Netflix and various other services, but there's enough friction that it kind of forces you into different modes of consuming that content. But maybe let's just talk about content itself then, before we kind of dive into the monetization, right? I mean, what is content today? Because obviously we've got a wide field here, everything from something that's creative to Adam's point around live event capture to something interactive. But as connectivity becomes as ubiquitous as it is, where we stop thinking about it, and there's a proliferation of content everywhere. What's the model for monetization then, when you're one voice in a stream of like a billion voices?
So, I mean, I would go back to what I'm saying, which is that most content sucks. Which is, most content isn't very good, and so there's a lot of it. But the content that is good and people know is good, people will gravitate to that. And in terms of talking about, which content is, what is content, that's whatever it is that the players or the consumers are consuming. That's content. So an example for that is beyond our games, we have a modding system. People can change our game and upload it to the workshop. And our top mod has over 250,000 subscribers. And it goes down from there. We have thousands of mods. We also have items that we drop for users, and they can trade it between each other. We drop the items for free, and it's a customization option for the players, and they can trade it between each other. And that becomes something that's significant for them. They can not only trade it between each other, they can sell it to each other. And these top items right now go for $50 to $100 each, and we drop them for free for the players. But these are real value things, and that as well as content. So it is whatever people value, whatever people consume to us.
I would define content as simply as something that's been created and can be consumed in some way, shape, or form. Clearly, I mean, very familiar with what Jamie and his company creates, and there's a huge passionate audience that's there willing to consume and willing to create and willing to share and willing to sell. But what is the content of the future, which is interesting. We were talking prior to the conversation around, can you think of a retail store as content? If you walk into a really, really well-curated store, is that a content experience? And I think in the digital world, when you start to look at all these big companies that are supplying the ability to buy products, be it shoes or clothes or sporting goods equipment, they're fulfillment houses. And as people start to create content to get you excited and passionate and connect to the right products, can those be thought of as content creators? And I pick on that area just because I find it particularly interesting. But I think the curators, the editorialists, in the short term, in the near future, and in the midterm, are going to start to monetize in the same way 100 years ago retailers started buying from wholesalers and selling on a localized basis. And I'm using that as kind of a weird, obtuse example, but content, again, can be you create something, you share a point of view, a particular take on something, or an interesting way of telling a story, and therefore as a streamer, that's exactly what you do, is deliver. I mean, nobody saw that model 7 years ago.
Right. Yeah, I think the thing about it is that it's predominantly a commentary or a sub-layer of content. Though, to be fair, I feel like the term content has been eviscerated into buzzword oblivion at this point. Like, if a word ceases to mean anything broader than, or anything less broad than everything, it's sort of become useless to us. I think that's the thing that the audiences are trying to pick up on too. I mean, from an authenticity perspective, if you're referring to anything as content at this point, the people who are buying that material, be it video or music, they're going to roll their eyes and take a step back from you because you obviously don't know what you're talking about. So I think the thing we really need to start thinking about is specificity around that. And to your point, I think that there's an idea behind streaming predominantly that you can take an existing piece of media, you can take a game, and you can provide commentary, you can provide expertise about that thing. And that in and of itself is the thing that's the product being sold. It's a step back and a commentary on that thing. And we interact with copyright, to your point earlier, about we interact with copyright on that content in a really antagonistic way. And I think that's something that we're going to see change really dramatically, at least I hope so, in the next little while.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think much has changed at a fundamental level in terms of the creation of content. Like Jamie said, most people they really produce just shit. And there's only going to be a small number of content creators that produce something that's authentic and worthwhile. I think if you're thinking about how things have changed, and again, this is almost like another buzzword in the digital age, it's really just the scale of the audience has changed and the ease of distribution has changed, right? It's a lot easier for me to distribute my shitty content to everyone. And that's a good thing because the variety of content also has I'm not going to keep saying content, so I'm sorry.
It's okay, I forgive you.
The variety of content has also changed. Like,
we can still be friends.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. The variety of content has also changed, right? Whether it's something that you would do on Snapchat, or something you would put on YouTube, or whether it's streaming, or whether it's like a game that took 2 years to make, right? It's all more available because the channels for production and consumption are easier.
I think the really interesting thing at an almost philosophical level is if everyone has a camera, who is a photographer anymore, right? Like Snapchat is a prime example of this. When I can make, I can make a 30-second video and share it with several thousand people at a whim, then what's the point of being a producer anymore, or a director? Or there's this democratization of media that we are at the very forefront of. Like, we've never been able to create media at the volume and rate that we can now, which to your point, Jamie, is most of it's garbage. But the thing is, it's like you're not making necessarily something for a huge audience anymore. If you can find that dedicated core audience, then what might be trash to everybody else, you're making it for these other people who appreciate that.
Right. So the problem now is discoverability, as
Yeah.
Kenshi and I would rant on for about 4 hours. When we started Clay, it wasn't discoverability a problem. It was a distribution problem. So we couldn't get our games off anywhere except Big Fish Games was at the time. There was something. PopCap was something that was around there, but they would take 70% of everything we sold, and so it was a brutal market. And we were trying to get it on, we're trying to get it on Nintendo platforms or anything that we could get it on. And we were the first one of the dozen games on Steam. We were one of the first dozen games on Xbox Live, and those were starting to break through those barriers. And it's really interesting because what's really funny is because I've been sitting through watching indies come out and more indies. And as we came out, we all came out of the woodwork. We said, oh, we want lower and lower barriers. That's what we really want, right? And as the barriers came down, we said, oh, no, we don't want those barriers down. No. I'm in now. Please put up the barriers back up so that we can, right? And it's pretty funny.
Okay, so if the fundamentals have always stayed the same, which is, don't make shitty content and people will pay for the stuff that you're making, then what has changed, right? Because obviously, our relationship to the media that you're creating is vastly different, right? So what do your customers mean to you? What's community, right? Even this whole phenomenon of streamers. So then how do you tackle the other side of this, which is that great niche content can actually have an amazing community around it that want to have a different relationship with you than they ever did before, because it's not passive anymore. So maybe let's explore that side of it.
Well, obviously, I mean, community is huge for anyone who's trying to build a sense of authenticity about a product or a piece of media. People don't like being sold to, and they never will. And I think, as a group, the sort of digitally savvy people they can sense insincerity. They can sense that they're being sold to, and it's harder even when you're not saying buy this game. You're saying buy me, buy the things I'm talking about, buy the attitude that I'm proposing as part of my community. And so I think that really there's this sense of trying to let go of that, trying to let go of monetizing the idea of community, building trust, and then letting people engage with that fiscally, right? Because so much of like what streamers do isn't about necessarily actively selling a thing, but saying I can only do this if you're willing to contribute, if you're willing to commit at a certain level. And that sense of trust is what I think makes streamers ultimately a really excellent resource for companies trying to market their media, their products. Because if it isn't for that sense of community engagement, then you kind of lose all of that connection.
And I think it's really interesting because, as we work with streamers and we talk to streamers, we try really hard. How do we make it so that it doesn't come out as, because we can find streamers who will take our money and just do it, right? But how do we make it so that it's still authentic? Because that's the value they bring. And it's an interesting dynamic that, and again, I think it goes back to, if you make great content, they want to stream it. That's the point. You can't force that, right? And if it fits with their persona, if it fits with their audience, then that's super great. An example of that is, Yogscast streamed Don't Starve, and it was like hugely popular for us. But then they also streamed Invisible Ink, and it did not work at all because it wasn't the right audience. They loved our games, but our games are so different. It just did not hit the same audience.
Yeah, I think engagement is about knowing the community, right? And the streamer or the personality as a representation of that community. And you have to kind of trust them that they understand the sort of things that their community is going to like. And if someone, like you said, if somebody just says yes to the first thing that you say, like, hey, we have this new game, you want to try it? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. There's a risk there that is going to turn into, you're going to be paying for bad press. So you really have to understand kind of what they're about and what their community is about too.
Yeah, the thing I find really interesting is that when products came out that made it infinitely easier for customers to buy something, the scale of the audience just increased by orders of magnitude. But that also means like rather than going to the store and picking up like a boxed copy of something, and just open my browser and download something. But then the flip side of that is, because it's so much easier for people to communicate with each other, if I have a legitimate complaint against the company, all I have to do is go on Twitter and be like, fuck these guys, they suck,
Well,
right?
yeah, that's I think that's ultimately, like, everything is interactive now, and we're moving towards this space where, like, I can't, if I watch an episode of a TV show and I'm like, this is garbage, I can't go on Twitter and at the person who made the show. I can go to the showrunner and be like, fuck you, buddy, your show is crap. But for me, that's a reality of every day, right? Like, there's access to people that create this media now that we never had before, and it's very tenuous in some places, depending on like how much experience these people have with it and the way that they interact with their audience.
And so things are just a lot more transparent.
I mean, let's just stay on the streaming idea for a couple more minutes, just because, I mean, it's fascinating to me, because I feel like there's a community of streamers that are kind of operating in a weird sort of gray area, I guess, in their relationship with whoever, quote unquote owns, the license or the copyright to whatever the original, game or whatever that original, piece of media was. So, one, you don't want to see this community in a way that feels inauthentic, because they'll smell it coming. But then, do you see any sort of formalization of these relationships, or is that taking place? And if you do that, does that make it inauthentic?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't see it as much from a game studio relationship with a streamer. It's more on the hardware side. There are a lot of people who are partnered with a Corsair or an Intel or an Astro for their, in the same way that a sports team might have a sponsorship. There are some streamers whose streams look like a race car. They're covered in logos, and these are all my I get my computer from here and I get my headphones from here, and that's a legitimate way for them to monetize that relationship. But it tends to stay on the hardware side for now, at least. And for media, and obviously Jamie, you can speak to this. For games, it's often a much more kind of handshake agreement where it says, I'll give you a free copy of my game, you play it. If you don't like it, be authentic about that. That's okay. That's a risk we're willing to take, but play it, get it out there. And it requires a lot of confidence in the thing you're making if you're willing to just turn it over sight unseen and say, play it. And I hope the 100,000 people that are watching your channel will not hate it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the interesting part about it is, if you think about any service, at the end of the day, it comes down to what role does this play in my life? And this is not a new model. This is a new delivery system. 30 years ago, when movie reviewers started showing up on TV shows, they became a major point of influence over what movies do I go see. Hey, do we want to go see this movie? Oh, well, thumbs up, thumbs down, back when all that was happening. Oh, it got 2 thumbs up. Let's go see it. It's an editorial point of view, and it's a point of view just like you have an audience, and people understand your point of view and either ascribe to it and like it, or are polarized by it and find it interesting and entertaining.
Yeah, I think the interesting difference being, though, that with Siskel and Ebert, you don't get to sit in between them while they watch the movie and watch the movie with them and hear them grumbling about it or getting excited about it as it goes.
Yeah, I think the new technology is, as you said earlier, the ability to interact. It brings new experience to it. But at the end of the day, and this is what I'm saying, it is an interesting thing, is this plays a substantial role in my life. If I'm interested in finding things, I want to find, whether it's entertainment or games, whatever it happens to be, people I relate to, that I can see their point of view and I can decide in an entertaining way, just like a reviewer has to be entertaining, or somebody, when you get back to original critics, people who are critiquing playwrights or ballet. I mean, it's an art form to critique. And I think it's amazing that people can find an audience now that have an interest and want to find the point of view. And some of the people are amazingly entertaining, and it becomes a new form of entertainment unto itself. But I think a lot of it will run into, as was being foreshadowed before, there will be great people at it who really have an objective point of view and authenticity, and there will be people that just take advantage of it. And I don't think that's any different than any other form like it. And the good, credible people will elevate, and the other ones, I mean.
So it's actually pretty funny, because it's got kind of this mental broadening of discoverability, because we want, as game makers, we want discoverability, and we ask streamers for that. want discoverability from you, right? That's kind of the thing that we get from. And then the streamers, they want discoverability, so they're trying to push that as well. And then the audience, now we're interacting with the audience as well, and they're probably content creators as well, like modders and things, and everyone's trying to get discoverability. It's pretty interesting. And coming back to what we do, on our website we have a thing which basically says you can stream our game whenever you like. You can do whatever you want with it. These are some of the ground rules that we do. One thing that is really interesting, just as a side note, is that we don't. I try not to license music because YouTube's really bad at recognizing that you license the music. Like you actually paid for it and you licensed it, and then they freaking take you down because they're like, you're using licensed music. And yes, I'm freaking using licensed music that I paid for.
It's a really awkward position to be in when you've worked with a developer to create content around something that they've built. You're putting out YouTube videos, you're doing game reviews, and your videos are getting demonetized because some third party is claiming that material, and it's almost always music, and it's the easiest thing where if you're a developer of that material and you don't explicitly say, I can't help this, the first thing a streamer is going to do is at you on Twitter and be like, why are you claiming my stuff? Like, I'm playing your game. Why is that happening? And then the developer is going to come back and be like, well, our hands are tied. Like, we can't do this either. So there's again, like I was saying before, like copyright is a huge issue in that space. And I don't think that anyone is doing any real work to change it. Certainly Google has no reason to, because they get ad revenue regardless of who it's coming from.
Well, I can tell you, having dealt with every form of content company, I will still steer clear of anything that has to do with music licensing. I hate the music industry. They are like the psychotic, jilted girlfriend that just wants to make your life hell forever and ever and ever. Because they completely missed the boat, they just make it so painful. A few friends and I created a music mashup app about 5 years ago called Jamble. It was amazing, and we actually licensed music loops from every major publishing organization, and you could be Girl Talk. You could, instantly be Girl Talk on the fly and mash up stuff. They made it so painful to license these loops and so expensive that I eventually took it down out of the App Store because just the reporting on it was just so horrible and painful. It was like, here's your $1,100. You just spent 3 times that in administration fees, and that's doing something legitimate. And what you were saying before about YouTube, it's not YouTube, it's the music publishers that have their fists so far up their asses that they're squeezing because they're still pissed off.
But I think it is YouTube. Like, I think that YouTube can do something
for sure.
Because I think they can just say they can just put more barriers to how you can take someone down, how you can take something down. And for example, you don't have that on Twitch. You're streaming my game, it doesn't just suddenly go down because some music guy says, oh, actually you're using that I paid for.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. They can serve the publisher and the sharer better.
Right. Or they can make it so that you pay for it. Like, if they do it and they're wrong, they have to pay back money. Right? They make it so that it costs money to take people down if you were wrong. Right? So there's plenty of ways to do it, and I think that Google can totally do it. And I believe that they will, and the reason why I believe they will is because more and more competitors are coming up in terms of the video space and the streaming space, and so they're going to need to do it.
Well, and they did have the advertising coming in for a while when you had copyrighted music, but that seems to have disappeared again.
So, definitely a lot of challenges on that side, but, maybe we can speak to the opportunities a little bit. I'm coming here today after just finishing a meeting with a client of ours that's a television production company. So they've been producing content the very traditional way of, we're going to create the show, package it up, and then walk it around to all the broadcasters, and they're going to, distribute it for us. And after a year of working with them, they've kind of had this moment where now suddenly over the last 6 weeks, all they want to talk about is their brand strategy and apps, and how are we going to get interactive, and how are we going to own these platforms and generate data, et cetera, et cetera. And perhaps there's other types of businesses that are ready to kind of reinvent themselves as well. But where do you guys see the biggest opportunity? Like, what are you excited about? What, is there a segment of business or industry that you look at and say, that is just really ripe for disruption, and there's going to be lots of money to be made if somebody does this? And what is that?
I think the platforms that serve the professional curators of the future will become really important. Whether it's because discoverability is still the biggest challenge on the web. retail online environments still look like the fanciest of them still look like Walmart. You go to a shoe site and there's like 1,600 pairs of shoes, and it's just overwhelming and it's not inspiring. Or you go to find, how many people here watch the TV show Happy Valley? Thank you. One. It's the most amazing show, but the rest of you have never seen it, never will see it, because you have no way of, even if you walk out of here today and go, and I know you won't do this, but you go, that guy's got an interesting point of view. I wonder what TV shows he's watching. You can't do it. There's no access to that. But again, in the same way new things have happened that have made access to points of view, people will become important curators about that, and there will be ways to find them, whether it's fashion, footwear, sporting goods, TV, movies. 6 years ago, we did a brainstorming session with the Toronto International Film Festival, and it was like, what could we do in the future? And I said, well, what do you do in the present?
So wait, are you talking about a small number of curators or everyone's a curator?
I think small number breakthrough, and then I think everybody tries to be one.
But that's already what's happening with YouTubers. They already exist. PewDiePie, PewDiePie, all of them. That's what they are. They're curators.
Well, what isn't working, what's too difficult right now is the affiliate programs. So when curators point to retail, there's not enough affiliate programs, and they're too clunky for people to monetize.
And they're not rewarded for that.
No, and I think eventually the shoes.com and the Amazons of the world become fulfillment systems for people who drive people there, in the same way retailers 30 years ago become the people who buy from wholesalers and present it in their store and get you excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon does a lot of that already. Like most streamers have an Amazon affiliate link. There are a lot of online game retailers like Good Old Games or Green Man Gaming. Both of those have affiliate programs. They reach out to streamers. I think that there's a lot of untapped space for affiliation programs for other things, for media, right? But you don't see a lot of that. And I think the other thing is we're seeing a lot more long-term subscription revenue coming in. At least, obviously, for me, like that's my bread and butter is subscription revenue from my viewers. But watching the Netflixes of the world and the Apple Musics and stuff come up, we're going to start seeing more and more, I think, on sort of the unexpected space. Like retail subscription is becoming a thing. There's a company called Loot Crate that sells subscription apparel and collectibles based on the idea of you pay your $15 a month and you don't know what you're going to get, but it's tailored to your tastes because we have the marketing data available to say, okay, this is a profile we can build about you, and you're going to get something that's worth your $15. And so we'll see more of that, I think, in the future around non-traditional stuff, not just ephemera, but real physical objects.
I have a question for you, which is, if you had an affiliate, would you feel like an affiliate program breaks the magic circle with your fans? Which is to say, now I'm shilling stuff.
I feel like for me, like I'm participating in a couple of affiliate programs, but they're not primary sources of revenue, and they're certainly not something like I'll mention them. But it's if you're going to buy this game anyway, you might as well use this link, or if you're going to be shopping on Amazon, if you're already here, use my link.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you look at something like, if you go back to traditional editorial, when Vogue does editorial and they show fashion, everybody knows there's a point of view and it's Vogue. But you are showing real brands. You don't know the murky relationships beneath the surface that they have with them. But if they don't highlight the best and most interesting content, they go out of business. So at the end of the day, they still have to provide amazing content. And I think you touched on a really important point, which is so many behaviors start in games because there's an openness to it, there's a hunger, and there's a passion. When I first started looking at bringing entertainment services, I took what I learned making video games for 15 years and said, how do these behaviors translate to other areas? And there's a whole new set of behaviors that happen every year that are yet to be translated to other businesses and industries.
Well, yeah, I mean, I spent 8 years in advertising before I started streaming, and advertising and game design are fundamentally the same discipline in that you're trying to get people to do a thing they wouldn't normally do without being incentivized to do it, right? Advertising is just, here's a message, I'm impelling you to go to a website or buy a product. Game design is the same thing. Game design is, here's a control, if you do this thing, you'll be rewarded in this way. So there's a lot of cross-discipline stuff happening there, and I think that as we get closer to the idea of, there was this sort of failed start of the idea of gamifying everything. Like a few years ago, that was the thing. You want to gamify everything. But I think the problem was that it wasn't organic enough. and that we're starting to develop more organic, more subtle methods of creating that sort of game-like engagement with products or content.
There are places where it does work really well. I just spent 2.5 years working with a company called Jawbone, and we took health and wellness, and we took basic behavioral game structures to motivate and incentivize people to care about their sleep, to want to sleep more, to want to be more active. And these were really simple, but it was a place where people were ripe for it, and you could have an ongoing relationship and do it.
Fitness is a great space for that, because I think that we tend to see being fit as a non-numerical thing. But once you're able to quantify that, once you're able to put goals in front of it, you essentially have access to your own character sheet, and now you can move through that space in a way that makes logical, rational sense. And so I think you're right. Like, there is, and you see this in streaming a lot too. A lot of people gamify their engagement. So the longer you're in the channel, the more you build points. You can use those points for special rewards as you watch, and it builds back up on that interactivity aspect. And I think we're going to see more of that in like all media, right? Like if you watch every episode of Daredevil, maybe it gives you access to a special behind the scenes that you can watch, right? Being able to engage people that way.
Yeah, I think it's just exciting that people have more access to different nodes in the network. Kind of like a common theme that I see with the things you guys are talking about is that brands are being decentralized away from just companies, and people are becoming real brands like PewDiePie. What if you carry that forward, because that's already happening. If you carry that forward, you know, it's interesting to see how people will communicate with each other. Does anyone here use an app called WeChat? So WeChat is like it's an app. It's a chat app from China, but basically every business in China has like a chat bot that you can talk to, and whether it's like a 1,000-person corporation or like a mom and pop flower shop, people can just chat with each other and fulfill orders, within like from their phone, and it's super simple, super effective. And it's something that like Facebook and like all those other guys are trying to do with AI bots now. And so I think that there's some potential in chat-based businesses. Even with the stuff you're talking about with gamification, a lot of the chat-based companies that are selling services are now hiring game designers to help design the flows to make things more to increase retention and monetization.
Like, what are the most profitable opportunities though? Like, do you guys ever kind of look at, whether it's game design or whether it's, massive media companies? And
That's easy.
Yeah.
On a per unit basis, free-to-play mobile games, by far like the most profitable thing out there. How easy it's not easy to break into it. It sucks to break into it. In fact, if you were like a lone developer, I would not break into it because the barriers to entry are so high. But if you're at the top, that market is growing incredibly fast. And it's insane. Like, I'll put it this way. Mobile games in free-to-play have global scale. Everyone has a phone in their pockets. That's the rise of the biggest platform since like the dawn of time. I can put out an ad on Facebook at anywhere in the world, and within minutes, someone can download my app and monetize in my game all over the world. That's just unprecedented scale, right? If you think about it, and the growth is insane, right? Like in 2011, a top grossing game in free-to-play made maybe $30,000 a day. In 2014, probably $2.5 million a day, right? 2020, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a top grossing game making $10 million a day.
Yeah, and it's only a matter of time before that stuff starts to get incentivized in a streaming sense too. Like, it's not long before we're going to see things like Clash Royale in esports. And like, for now, it seems like impossible, but once the technology is available to broadcast at a high enough latency from a mobile device playing a game like that, it's a no-brainer for sure.
But it is another case of the big get bigger, and the small have a really fucking hard time of ever being discovered.
Which basically happens in every industry.
I mean, that's capitalism, right? Like,
it is. It is interesting though, because what I've started to notice is people are going with a lot of branded content or recognizable IP, and even the big publishers, in order to bring in huge audiences up front. And so you're getting things like Marvel games coming into this kind of mid-core area.
Yeah, they do it to discount user acquisition costs.
Yeah, because user acquisition costs are insane, and you have to be able. It's like the way TV. I don't know how many people know how TV used to work. It was deficit financing. You'd be watching a show, a series on a network, and both the network and the production company would be losing money every year up until the point where it was syndicatable. It was called deficit funding. And until, most shows, you watched a lot of shows you thought were successful, they lost a ton of money on. And it's the same thing, with most of these mobile publishers. So it is like, yeah, it's really sexy if you make it succeed.
So the rich get richer is true in most capitalist kind of systems, but the curve is different for different channels. And specifically, again, it goes back to discovery, which is how easy is it? So if of course, Kenshi, I told you this, but if you look at Steam every week, it looks different. The top sellers on Steam look different every week, which is the premier PC distribution channel, right? And so that's really fascinating. I think that's really amazing that it can change every week, and that hasn't changed in over a year besides Clash Royale on mobile, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Like on Steam, it's very democratic, and discoverability is less of a problem. Kind of like how Jamie said, at first everyone can get in, and then they wanted to erect the barriers to entry again. When we first started out in the mobile app store, any game you released would easily get 2,000 to 5,000 downloads a day for free, no advertising, right? And people very quickly realized the benefits of performance advertising in order to game the ranks to get more downloads. And so, while on Steam, the barriers to entry never went up. In mobile, the barriers to entry very quickly went up, where the people.
So it is going up on Steam, just way more slowly, and that's what
Right.
I mean by the curve. It's just different, right?
I see.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, it seems, as somebody that's not spending every day focused on that, it feels like Steam is kind of the film festival of the game world, where you have people that come to it with a lot of passion, curiosity, and interest, and community means a lot, and discovering the new thing means a lot. Where mobile games is the big tentpole movie, where you've got audiences that aren't doing a lot of deep digging.
To be clear, mobile is simply everybody. That's all it is. It's just everybody. But the problem is you've got this little screen and it only shows the tentpoles. That's the problem. But it actually has everybody. And so theoretically, it can support all the film festivals and up, but you can't find it. That's the problem. So for us, one of the exciting things is China. We don't understand it, but we're very popular in China. That's what I would say, and we're exploding there. It's going up and up and up every weekend. We're investing in that, and we're making sure that that's being supported. So certainly, there's a lot of growth. Russia is really big for us as well, and so I think there's a lot of growth. Besides looking at distribution channels, but also looking geographically, there's just a lot of.
I think that's something that makes mobile such an interesting platform, because a game that's developed for a console or for PC requires a much higher hardware footprint than a mobile game, and there are a lot of countries for which mobile gaming is the only gaming that's available to the people there.
All right, so that continues to be the biggest opportunity. So I'd like to kind of maybe we'll start kind of winding down with maybe some personal stories here. And I think it'd be interesting to hear from you guys. First, maybe what advice you'd give somebody that's kind of, entering into the arena for the first time. And secondly, if you were to kind of go back a couple of years and maybe start the same company or head into the same sort of market, what would you do differently? Like, what have your learnings been over the last couple of years? Maybe we'll start here.
So in terms of what advice I would give, I mean, really, I think that we've been talking a lot about context, and that context means a lot. And so, although I'm the number one advocate of great content, but I also feel like context matters a lot in the sense of what good content means per platform and per place that you're going toward. And so I think that understanding what that really means per place is what matters and what makes the difference, right? And you can see that a lot with mobile games trying to go into PC or PC games trying to go into mobile. It just doesn't directly translate. So that's something that I would focus on. And the other thing is we talk a lot about gamification, and I think that really understanding games, if you're to do games, is really important. So the story that I like to share is that in games and gamification, we think about points. We think about digitally, I'm getting more and more points as I do the thing. But in Don't Starve, which is our most popular game, is a game where after you play it, you die, and then we erase all your progress, all of it. And you lose, you gain no points, nothing. It's all gone. You don't get to put it anywhere. It's just start all over again. And the reason that works is because it's intrinsically interesting to play that game. And so, the example I give often is, you don't play chess thinking that I get points at the end of it, or you don't play basketball thinking that I'm going to keep the points at the end of the game. It's interesting to do it in and of itself, and that's what games really are. That's where games really came from. It's not about this keeping the thing; it's about doing the thing. So, that's what
Well, I've played chess against some guys who've been keeping score since high school, but
Yeah,
that's different.
sure.
Yeah.
Having spent a lot of time the last few years around wearables and health and wellness, I think there's really interesting opportunities coming up. And at the very best, and most of the systems are really crude right now, the very best of them are starting to make people aware of their own behaviors. They're starting to make people aware of their own data. And only the best of them, and just barely, they're starting to make meaning out of that data. But what will follow, as soon as people start understanding, what does it mean to me that I only got 6.5 hours of sleep last night? Or what does it mean to me that my hydration level's at 30%? Or what does it mean to me that I didn't get enough REM? Then as people start to understand that, and I think those will be the free or embedded services with your hardware, then people will start creating more services for those platforms that you'll pay for. So if I see my stress levels on a daily basis and I start to care and I'm looking for a solution and somebody provides a meditation experience that ties into that, I might spend money on that and I might find new things. So I think of it as there's the prescription side of the world, the way we think of medication today, and there's the over-the-counter side. And I think the prescription side of health and wellness is going to be one thing, but the part I'm interested in, what are the over-the-counter experiences? And how do they become important to me? And who builds them and serves them up and monetizes? I don't know how many of you, there's good examples starting to emerge like Headspace, which is a meditation app originally out of the UK, now in Los Angeles, that has hundreds of millions of users now and are monetizing it. And that's people who are coming to it already saying, I want to meditate. And that's such a tiny sliver of the world. So that's a part I'm finding very interesting and exciting.
When you talk about entering the arena, do you mean like what areas we find exciting, or do you mean like just becoming an entrepreneur in general? Could you elaborate on that question a bit?
I think what areas do you find exciting, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, that's fair. So I don't know anything actually, so it'd be kind of dumb for me to try to predict something. Personally, though, I think with the rise of mobile and the smartphone, the supply chains to support the different components of the smartphone have become quite massive, and there have been a lot of industries, including the Internet of Things and wearables, that have risen because of the rise of the smartphone. You know, like a drone, for example, is really just a flying smartphone. And so I'd probably start looking into some of the consequences of what that means more deeply. I'd probably start to think about all these supply chains to support smartphones. What used to be expensive is now cheap, and what opportunities are there in that space? And I think people are already exploring that, to be honest. And I'd probably just play around. And I'm sorry, what was the second question again?
Well, nobody's been answering it, but maybe we'll hit that again afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll come back to that. And so, yeah. So in short, I really don't know. And it'd be dumb for me to try to predict. But I do think that there's just a very, very interesting intersection of industries coming together to support this giant platform. And within those industries, there's probably something really cool.
I think for me, the thing that's the most interesting is this development of micro celebrity. Of no one's going to be famous for 15 minutes anymore. You're going to be famous for 15 people, and that's a real thing. And I think that as that builds, people become less and less trustful of the idea of interacting with a brand. The brand is a nebulous thing. It's not a person you could talk to. Worse, even so, a company. Right? People are starting to distrust the idea of interacting with a company, and so real human voices get more and more weight and merit as we move into this space where you're not going to turn to a company for your buying habits or your media engagement habits. You're going to be looking at other people who are doing that engaging for you. And as a company, interacting with people who are doing that on with some integrity, right? Who are engaging with your content because they want to, and being willing to take that risk to say, you're going to like what you like and you're going to not like what you don't like, but I want to engage with you as a person because I know your personal brand. And the things that those people say are much easier to humanize and to look at the results of than if you were to say just have a corporate Twitter account, for example. So I think engaging with people on whatever level of micro or macro celebrity they have is the best way to get a message out to a dedicated audience.
Well, I mean, the last point's really interesting because the notion of trust in the content is something that I'm quite fascinated with. I mean, we talk about brand and what community and content means to our clients. But I was reading something interesting recently about our relationship with social media, for example, and about the waves of trust we've gone through with content. Where a millennia ago, you only trusted something if it came from another human being, and then the printing press came about, and there was all sorts of distrust around the printed word, because it was like, who printed this? Where did they print it? Why did they print it? How can I trust this piece of paper? And then we entered the era of the printed word, and now the only thing you trusted was the printed word because it was official, it came from a thing, and because it came from that official thing, you trusted this thing. And now we're kind of moving away from that again, where there's actually distrust of large media, and we're now trusting the individual again. And we'd rather trust that personality, that character, that individual we've connected with, because we don't necessarily trust the large thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can have things in common with a person, but I have nothing in common with a corporation.
Well, we work to correct that. So the last question was, and this is just more of a curiosity than anything, but being where you are now, what would you do differently, knowing what you know now, last couple of years?
I would like to not start.
All right, something less depressing.
No, sorry, I would like to not start the question. I would like to go
okay.
last.
All right.
I'm sorry. I
way better answer.
Totally took it in a different direction.
Don't do it. Just no.
No. Okay, fine. I'll start. It's cool. It's really cool. And frankly, it's been amazing. Personally, what I would do different. There's a lot of mistakes that we made. It's really hard for me to answer because I really enjoyed the journey that went through, and I talk a lot about liking that it took 10 years to build a company, because I feel that that's why we have a great culture. That's why a lot of things work in our studio. There was a certain point where we decided that we were going to have no middle managers. And so that whole layer is gone. We have 50 people and no middle managers, and it just kind of and that works because we've built trust over a very long period of time, and we made mistakes, and people saw that after we made mistakes we improved, right? And I think those are really key things, right? So what would I do again? Maybe I would do it. I would probably start the company like 3 years later than I started it, is actually what I would probably have done. Because at the time when I was trying to build digital games, there was just no distribution. It just didn't work. So for 3 years, all I was doing was trying to stay alive. That's it. And, we had a 100 square foot office for 4 people. The power would go out all the time. And we were funded by, the government. We were scratching by. And that was because it was just a little bit before it was available what we needed in order to get going.
What I would do differently is I would have not spent so much time and energy working with old world business model oriented companies and trying to leverage their content and bring them into the future or into the present.
Yeah, I feel that. Just leave the dead where they lay and move on.
Maybe it's just from getting old, but like I have no interest in saying, oh yeah, I thought of that 8 years ago, and they finally caught up because they had to. I would have focused more energy. The one really, really interesting partnership that we had a chance to ideate with was the UFC at Xbox Live, because they just didn't give a shit about any existing business model. And as we started to create these new experiences that clearly made watching a pay-per-view on cable feel obsolete, I would say, to the people there, and if those of you who know who Dana White is, you'll get this. I go, well, do you care that your consumers find this experience way better than cable? Because guess what? When we did that with ESPN and we created my own personalized sports center, it scared the crap out of them. and they stop giving us content. Dana's response was no. Literally, I'll quote him here when I asked him about upsetting the cable people. He said, I hate those fuckers. And he wanted to disrupt that whole industry. So focusing on either partnerships or content or creating new things, I think just not focusing on scale and things you know will scale and focusing on things you just think can be great, no matter how many people you think will like them. If they're great, they will proliferate and they will find audiences.
I think within the context of our business, I probably would have doubled down more on user acquisition when we had a hit. So to give you guys some context, we released one of the first mobile games with in-app purchases, and we quickly rose to like number 2 top grossing in the App Store. And back then, you could do performance-based advertising and get an install or a user for your game for about 25 to 75 cents. And we thought, wow, that's really expensive, without realizing like each user that played our games was worth over $10, right? And so now if you want to buy an install, it's like $10. And everyone's like, remember the days when users were just 25 cents, right? And so I should have been more cognizant of what a market looks like when it matures. But given that, and maybe from a personal level, I like the idea of making lots of mistakes. I've probably made every mistake in the book, and the only saving grace is that I've gotten better after every mistake. And so, there's a lot of advice there on how to run startups and do all that kind of stuff, and I'm not going to repeat that. But maybe the thing that's worked for me is I probably invest in maybe a meta system for learning from my mistakes quicker, right? And that converges to, how do you improve your own system for learning? And so, for example, one hack that worked for me is I decided maybe last year I was going to read a book a week, right? And just even reading was like super, like immensely useful.
I was going to make a Back to the Future 2 joke, but I didn't know if it would fly. I feel like because so much of the stuff that I'm working with right now, so much of the infrastructure that supports what I'm doing just wasn't viable even like 5 years ago. The Kickstarters, the Patreons, the Twitch.tv, those things just didn't exist. That any advice that I would have for a past version of me would be met with complete befuddlement. So I don't really have anything to say to that version of me except just like hold on and new things will happen. For me, everything is about what's tomorrow. Twitch just this weekend completely changed the way their ad revenue model works. Just out of the blue. It's not a thing that came with any warning. They're just like, ads work differently now. Okay, go, figure it out. So my business existence spans maybe a week in both directions. So I need a more powerful time machine than the one I have.
That's amazing that they didn't signal it at all. They just changed it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. They just it was part of the town hall at PAX. They were just like, this is how it's going to change.
And by the way,
yeah, this is how it's going to change, and how it'll be this way in a month. So there you go.
Looks like they're learning from Apple.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's part of the excitement of the job. I think it's interesting being able to. Agility is the most important thing to survive in a streaming environment. Being able to roll with a change like that and say, okay, this is going to be different. I need to communicate that to my audience, and we need to figure out a way to use it to amplify the brand, to continue on the path that we're going. There's speed bumps and
there was a
potholes.
question when we did a pre-panel talk where you were not there, and someone asked, do the streamers earn their living? Like, is it hard work? So
no, I live in a
this
dumpster.
This is
yeah. There's no money. No, and that's weird because I think that for me the particularly weird thing about the industry, about streaming, is that if you, let's say you're a musician, you play the guitar, you don't have to explain to a person what a guitar is, right? They know already. You don't have to explain to them what a television is if you're on a TV show. But a lot of the time I have to start with, okay, so do you know what a video game is? Okay, I play those, and people pay me to play them, and I talk about them on a website. You know what the internet is? Okay. And it makes going through customs interesting.
All right. So I think at this point we're going to open it up for a Q&A with the audience. I'm not sure if there's there's a floating mic. So anybody have any questions? We've got one in the back there.
Sorry, I should know I'm not a rookie at this. I've used these things tonight once. This has been an awesome discussion, and you guys have brought up a lot of really interesting things about content. I hate to use the word. I hope we're still friends.
We'll see. Jury's out.
You're too honest. I'm really from the advertising side of the house. So, when we use the word content, we're always creeping into the picnic. We're like the ants that weren't invited to invade, the party that you're having at the moment. So, like when you talk about editorial or you talk about good content versus bad content, what are your thoughts about like native content, like in gaming or in other places? I think that it's really getting harder to diffuse the the sell behind the freemium content or whatever you want to call it, and the real stuff. Even though it can be masked, in excellent ways that maybe end up being a fantastic content product that everybody adores. Just wondering if that's a good question or whether or not that's kind of a comment on tonight. But I guess the bottom line is that everything has to get paid for. People don't realize how much advertising pays for everything. So beyond the subscriber model, I think it was really interesting what was said tonight about how so many of the existing things today are going to become fulfillment houses. So do you see games as being like the new channel, for everything being sold?
I mean, to be clear, the freemium games sell stuff inside the freemium games and makes massive amount of money. So there's no ads paying for those freemium games. Well, there is ad-supported games, obviously, but really
I've always thought the most interesting freemium model isn't the if you want this item in the game, you pay money for it. It's the watch a 30-second ad. Or if you want, a character boost for now, fill out this short survey, like marketing data as content payment there. I think that's fascinating. And I think that as people start to become more aware that things that they think are free, like Facebook, aren't actually free, they're just paying with a different form of capital, I think we'll see more of that happen for sure.
So I can speak a little bit about that. So just to be clear, like in-app purchases without like ads supporting it still make like the most amount of money. But we do have some games where it's a free download and a user can watch or a player can watch a 30-second video for some in-app or for some in-game currency. And honestly, I think it all comes down to the user experience. And so when you design that correctly and it's integrated to the game correctly, we've actually had complaints from our players when they weren't shown enough ads. And so once I think our video ad provider went down, so we took out all ads from the game, and our customer service department blew up. They said, "Where the hell are my ads? I want to see them. Give me back my ads." And we also tried removing ads. Like if you've monetized in our game via in-app purchases, we stopped showing ads to people, and they started complaining. Like people who had spent thousands of dollars potentially in a game started complaining because they weren't getting 30-second ads for a trivial amount of virtual currency. And so I don't really see anything wrong with that as long as like the player is happy, and it's actually really interesting.
I've always liked the quote. Hello. I've always liked the quote, "The future of the way things used to be," and I think about that with TV content and movie content, where I have an unmanageable amount of subscriptions I subscribe to for content because I love movies and TV, and if my wife actually knew it,
catch yourself there. Good work.
And if my wife actually looked at my Visa bill and saw the amount I spend on all the channels, I mean, I'm probably like $400 a month, but luckily I do the bills, and that's not sustainable. And I think what'll happen is the rest of the world, you won't be able to have HBO and Showtime and Netflix and Hulu and SHOMI and all these. And what'll happen is you'll go, but I really want to watch, Billionaires, but I don't want to pay $15 a month. And they'll start to offer, not just individual episodes, but which they're starting to do more of, but they'll say, hey, if you watch it with an ad, and then all of a sudden we'll be back to TV, 50 years ago, which is okay.
But we drove away from it. We're going to come back to it. A friend of mine I spoke to yesterday, he's in charge of creating all this branded content that Microsoft funds. None of the shows have anything to do with Microsoft. They're just trying to come up with show ideas to support, and some of them are just shows that are being pitched to have a point of view or bring in the audience they think will be interested in their product. So it's like the soapbox companies, getting behind funding primetime TV shows, in the 1950s. So these models are coming back around, but in we're going to think they're slightly revolutionary, but they've already been here, and we're going to realize there's some, like the person that wants to pay the premium price, like there's no way I wasn't going to watch Game of Thrones in real time Sunday night. There's just no way. I'm not going to wait 3 years like my friend Albert. He doesn't care. But to me, that's very important, so I'm going to spend my money against that. But lots of people won't.
It's funny because we, as game creators, we buy ads, and also we're now serving ads at the same time, right? So it's pretty interesting. The thing that I'd say is serving an ad is, in general, especially if you're just like, especially if you say, show me an ad and you can watch Game of Thrones, like you're just gonna make no money doing that. It's just not okay. So it needs to be something that's recurring, like a video game where you just keep playing it, you can keep incentivizing, you keep doing the ads, right? That's the only way that works. But in a linear media, one ad, I mean, it's just not going to sustain. And on the other side, what I'm really looking forward to is getting rid of CPMs. I mean, it still exists. It's amazing the CPMs still exist because they're so bad at showing you whether or not your ads work or not. So if you're in the ad industry, it's just really, really bad. And the data you do get is often really, really bad. Or just straight up wrong, and you can verify that it's wrong.
Has anyone seen a talk by a man named Gabriel Layden at a conference called Recode talking about marketing?
You should watch it. It's pretty funny.
It's amazing. Yeah, and so he basically said the marketing industry that's based on impressions is perverse. And that everyone's trying to go back to CPM-based impressions so that they don't have to be attributable. They don't have to do.
They don't have to show that their stuff doesn't work.
Right, exactly. And then if you think about it, the performance marketing companies, the ones that show you whether or not your ads are working, that are based on a CPI basis rather than a CPM basis, are actually some of the most successful companies in the world, right? Like two of the top tech companies in the world are performance-based ad companies, like Facebook and Google.
There's a really interesting thing already being done in the States. You'd see it on Comcast, Xfinity, or here I think you can see it on Shaw, which is if you go to the on-demand, and even if you want to watch a show from a network broadcaster, and it took them way too long to figure this one out, you can watch it, right? Anytime you want, it's on demand, there it is. And that's all they're in the business of. They're not in the business of getting a subscription fee from you. But what they've done is they've embedded advertising. And interestingly enough, they've embedded less advertising than if you watched it from the broadcast or you recorded it on a PVR. And there is no way to fast forward through it. So you actually watch it. So they figured out what is the actual right amount of advertising somebody will watch. And it works. Because when I PVR something, I never watch an ad, as I doubt anybody does. But they figured out, okay, people do want to watch the show. They do want to watch it on demand. Not in real time, and they've created a simple structure where it works. That has to find new ways to proliferate because most people have never even used that on their box or their cable system, and they need to do more of that on the web, but that will become part of how people start to monetize the more traditional side of media.
I think we've got time for one more question. Yeah, in the front.
Yeah, I'm going to eventually.
You've got a Kate Upton lined up for your next ad.
Mariah Carey, actually.
Nice. So I can get behind that. Fantasy's a great song.
Right. Did you guys hear the question? It was.
No, could you repeat the question?
Okay, great. So that company, Machine Zone, is actually not being irrational with their spend. what they've done is they've actually saturated all the performance user acquisition channels first. And so all the marketing that they can do that can be measured, they just have okay, so the short answer to that is you can do that when you just have way too much money, right? And so right now, I'm stuck in the unit economics game where I want to make sure that the cost to acquire a user is less than the amount of money or the LTV that user brings me. Eventually, you're going to get to a point, especially in mobile free-to-play, where you're making millions of dollars a day. And maybe you're making $3 million a day. And maybe my operating costs are $100,000. And the most I can spend on any marketing channel is like $1 million. Well, I still have a lot of money left over, and I might as well put that towards creating a moat, or at least protecting my game. And so, actually, research has shown that when you have saturated performance-based marketing, and you do something like a TV ad, which is terrible by itself, you actually see an increase in conversion rates for all your good marketing channels. And so the example there is maybe you're using Facebook ads. You see the Kate Upton commercial on TV, or Arnold Schwarzenegger right now, and you're surfing Facebook, and you see the ad, and you remember the TV show, and so you're more likely to tap on the ad. And so, yes, I would like to do that. That's my dream, but I don't make that much money yet.
All right, so I think we're going to conclude it there. So Adam, Kenshi, Stephen, Jamie, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome. That was one of the best panels I've seen in a long time, and you guys don't know it yet, but you're all being recruited to help monetize this event after the on our YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone, for coming. That was great. I just want to thank again Mo for moderating tonight, and our panelists. We have food and drinks in the lobby from Foodie, so please help yourself and join us at our next event, Virtual Reality and How It's Changing the World as We Know It, presented by Dorothy Keenan and Keith Spencer. Thanks again for coming, and we'll see you outside.